Okay, take a look around you. I mean, our screens, right? They're just glowing with these perfect lifestyles, these must-have items, promotions that seem, well, too good to miss.
Uh-huh. It's so easy to get swept up.
It really is.
Yeah.
And you feel that pull, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely designed to be captivating. But often, behind that shiny surface, that urge to just buy, there's something else going on.
What's that?
Well, it's this hidden cost, the quiet buildup of debt, maybe, a weakening of your financial core. Think of it like financial termites.
Termites. Okay, explain that.
Yeah, like they're silently eating away at the foundation, your financial security foundation.
And the numbers we saw from the materials you shared, they're frankly a bit scary. In Taiwan, for young adults, say 20 to 45, the average debt ratio.
It's incredibly high, staggering, really, 185%.
Wow, 185%.
And even more worrying, I thought, was that 7 out of 10 households, they just don't have enough saved for an emergency. Exactly. And that lack of a safety net, it just leaves so many people vulnerable. So this deep dive, it's really about uncovering the how. How does that happen?
Right.
We're going to focus on 5 specific kinds of spending, specific patterns that the sources you gave us identify. These are the financial termites we're talking about, the ones that can quietly wreck things.
Okay, so our mission today is basically identify these 5 traps, understand why they work so well on us, and, most importantly, figure out how to spot them and steer clear.
Yeah, the goal is avoiding that material called soy, looking sharp outside, but
nothing in the bank. Finally poor.
Exactly. And just preventing that slide towards, well, real financial trouble.
We've got some really specific examples and some surprising data points lined up from the sources, right? Getting into the psychology, the real-world impacts.
We do. Pulled out some fascinating bits. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. Okay, first one. Something I think we've all done. Impulse buying. One source called it a shopping trap designed by the brain and merchants.
That feels spot on, doesn't it?
Totally. You're just, maybe standing in the checkout and bam! Something catches your eye.
Or you're scrolling online and suddenly there's this flashing limited time offer just for you.
Right. And that placement, it's not accidental, is it?
Oh, not at all. It's totally deliberate. Think about those little things near the cash register, gum, candy, those little gadgets. And online, well, algorithms are constantly pushing hot items or flashing limited quantity warnings at you.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting. The neuroscience bit the research highlighted.
Yeah.
Just seeing scarcity, like last chance.
It does something in your brain, right?
Yeah. It actually triggers the nucleus accumbens. That's like the pleasure and reward zone.
Right, and that triggers this rush of dopamine. It feels good, feels exciting.
Like you're getting a special deal, this immediate urge to just do it.
But the really critical point the source made is how this messes with your decision-making time.
How so?
Well, normally a rational decision takes maybe 12 seconds, give or take. But under the influence of that dopamine hit from seeing only 3 left, that time can shrink down to as little as 3 seconds.
Wow, 3 seconds. Your logical brain barely gets a look in?
It just gets bypassed. It's incredibly effective. There was this great example, maybe a little wild, from the material. Mr. Chen.
The tech engineer in Taipei. Yeah, tell us about him.
So during a huge Double 11 live stream, that's like China's big online shopping day, he saw a buy one, get 3 free deal on Bluetooth earphones.
Okay, sounds tempting.
He got caught up in the hype and impulsively bought 12 sets.
12. But didn't he already have some?
He already owned 3 pairs.
Oh my goodness.
And get this, the sources say 8 of those 12 sets are still unopened, just sitting there.
Just gathering dust.
Pretty much. And they even calculated the estimated storage cost for these unused things, about 23 TWD per day.
Doesn't sound like much, but it adds up. You're literally paying rent for stuff you don't need.
Exactly. So how do we fight this? How do we break free from that immediate dopamine hit?
Good question. What did the sources suggest?
Well, one really practical strategy is putting in a cooling off period, like 72 hours.
3 days.
Yeah, so you feel that impulse, especially online. Don't click buy. Take a screenshot, add it to a wish list, whatever, then just step away for 3 days.
Let that initial excitement, that dopamine buzz, just fade a bit.
Precisely. After 72 hours, go back. Look at it again. Ask yourself, honestly, do I still want this as much? Is it a real need or just leftover impulse?
Does that actually work?
Well, there's some solid evidence. The research pointed to Japan's big camera electronics store. They actually tried putting in a shopping bucker period for customers. Returns dropped by 47%.
Wow, nearly half. That's significant.
It really shows that just giving people that little bit of breathing room makes a huge difference in the decisions they make. It's about creating a bit of friction, you know?
A pause between the impulse and the action. Makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears. Termite number 2, cheap consumables. The material called this saving small money, losing big money.
Ah, yes, the lure of the super low price tag. We've all seen it.
Totally. That cool shirt at the night market for like 50 TWD.
Yeah.
Or you grab something trendy from a fast fashion place for almost nothing.
Up front, it feels smart, right? Like you're saving cash, looks stylish, seems affordable.
But there's always a but.
Yeah. The sources highlight what happens pretty quickly. That night market shirt, it's pilling after maybe 3 wears. That fast fashion tee looks faded and sad after just 2 washes.
Ugh, yeah. Been there.
And the material made the point that these things actually kind of erode your quality of life because they look worn out so fast they just fall apart.
And it's not just how they look, right? There was something about the quality itself.
Definitely. One report from the Textile Research Institute showed the actual fiber strength in a lot of this cheap clothing is way lower than mid-range stuff. They're just not built to last. Short lifespan is basically guaranteed.
Okay, so they fall apart faster. Anything else?
Well, there's a potential health angle, too. The sources mentioned tests showing up to 78% of cheap clothing had excessive chemical dye residue.
78%. Wow. What does that mean?
It can lead to skin irritation, maybe allergies, potential longer-term issues if you're constantly wearing stuff with leftover chemicals.
Yikes. So you're trading maybe a bit of savings for lower quality, faster breakdown, and potentially iffy chemicals.
That's the trade-off. Plus, there's the environmental cost. Big one.
Right, the waste.
Statistics from Taipei City's Environmental Protection Bureau, 1,200 tons of discarded clothing incinerated every year, and the average lifespan for those cheap items, just 2.3 months.
2 months. That's incredibly wasteful. Huge environmental strain for something used so briefly.
It really makes you think differently, doesn't it? Which leads to the idea of cost per use or lifetime cost. That's how the material suggests smarter consumers think.
Okay, explain cost per use.
It's a key shift. Think about the work shoe example they gave. A really good anti-slip safety shoe maybe costs 3,000 TWD. Seems like a lot.
Yeah, up front.
But if it lasts you 3 years, the daily cost is tiny, around 2.7 TWD. Now compare that to a cheap 500 TWD shoe you have to replace every 2 months. That cheap shoe's daily cost suddenly jumps to 8.3 TWD. Over the long haul, the supposedly cheaper option costs you way more.
Because you're buying it over and over again.
And probably dealing with sore feet, too.
Exactly. You never get the benefit of something durable and comfortable. But the good news is, it seems like mindsets might be shifting a bit.
How so?
Well, we heard about this owner of a well-known leather shoe shop in Taipei on Yongking Street. He's seen a 40% jump in customers choosing custom, handmade shoes in just the last 3 years.
Interesting. People investing more.
Yeah. There's this growing idea that it's better to invest in one pair that truly fits and lasts rather than chasing fleeting trends. People are starting to value durability again.
It feels like a really positive, smart shift. Okay, let's hit the third financial termite, social face projects, or networking bubbles. The material called this the expensive price of vanity.
Oof. Yeah, this one's about spending money to project a certain image, or maybe trying to buy your way into relationships or networks.
Like trying to impress people. Exactly. The sources painted this picture, young people in fancy restaurants, maybe rushing to pick up the tab for a huge meal, thousands of TWD, just to look successful or important.
On the surface, it might just look like being generous, being a good friend or colleague.
It might, but as the research pointed out, they're often sacrificing their own financial future, maybe dipping into retirement savings just for that temporary feeling of status or getting approval.
Is there data on this? How common is it?
Yeah, quite stark data, actually. A Manpower Inc. survey cited in the sources. It showed office workers under 30 spend, on average, 27% of their monthly income just on social activities.
27%. That's huge. More than a quarter of their income just on socializing.
It's massive. And get this, 65% of those same people admitted that treating others was mostly about maintaining relationships. They believed it would help them build connections, gain approval.
So it's not always about genuine friendship, but more like a perceived social investment.
It suggests that, yeah, That the spending is driven by this feeling that you have to spend money to keep or build relationships.
That's kind of sad, actually. And the psychology behind it is fascinating, too.
It really is. The research mentioned fMRI scans looking at brain activity. When someone receives an expensive gift, the brain areas that light up overlap a lot with areas linked to debt pressure.
Wait, so getting a big gift can actually feel stressful?
It suggests that, yeah. While the gesture seems positive, these kinds of financially loaded interactions might create this underlying psychological stress for both the giver and the receiver.
So the initial wow factor wears off, but a sense of obligation or pressure might linger.
Could be. And the sources argue pretty strongly that relationships built mainly on these kinds of money exchanges are often, well, fragile. Real networking, deep connections, they're not really based on who spends the most.
Okay, so what's the alternative then? How do you build real connections without going broke?
Well, there was a great example. Mr. Clark, head of a technical department at TSMC, the big tech company.
Right. What did he do?
He maintains his key relationships not with fancy dinners, but by writing handwritten letters every month, sharing life insights, work stuff, experiences.
Handwritten letters. Wow, that's old school, but powerful.
Exactly. The research suggested this approach builds much deeper understanding and trust than just splitting a check ever could.
That's a lovely thought. But for most of us, maybe not writing letters monthly. What's a practical step?
The sources had a couple of good suggestions. First, set a realistic social budget. A guideline they offered was keeping annual social spending within 5% of your after-tax income.
5%. Okay, that feels way more manageable than 27%.
Absolutely. And another really smart idea, just change the venue sometimes. Instead of always meeting at expensive cafes where one coffee can be 300 TWD, easy.
Right.
Try meeting for a walk in a park by the river. The research actually indicated that this kind of relaxed environment can increase the depth of conversation by about 60%.
Really? 60% deeper conversation just by walking in a park?
Apparently so. You save money, and you might actually connect better.
That is a definite win-win.
Yeah.
Connection over consumption. I like it.
That's the idea.
Okay, moving on. Termite number 4. Home goods bought for added value. The material called this the time black hole.
Ah, yes. This one often sneaks up on you. It plays on that desire for a beautiful home, maybe one that looks great on social media.
Right, you see the trendy kitchen gadgets, the gorgeous carved glasses, those intricate lace curtains.
And you think, oh, that'll add a sense of ceremony or elegance or value to my life. Looks great in the photos, right?
For sure. But what's the hidden cost here?
Your time. The sources call these things stealers of your time assets. There was an IPA home survey report from Taiwan mentioned. It's pretty startling.
What did it find?
The average household spends 142 hours per year just cleaning decorative items.
142 hours. That's like 18 full workdays, just dusting knickknacks and polishing things.
It's a huge amount of time you could be spending on, well, almost anything else. And the regret factor here is apparently quite high.
People regret buying this stuff.
Yeah. In one survey where 67% regretted past purchases, over half, 53% of those regretted items were things that needed special maintenance or a lot of upkeep.
So they looked good at first, but then they just became a chore.
Exactly. The initial joy gets buried under the ongoing work. The sources kind of touched on that idea of true value, maybe like the KonMari thing. Does it spark joy?
Right, but maybe the question isn't just, does it spark joy now, but will it spark joy when I'm cleaning it for the 10th time?
Precisely. It's about assessing the ongoing cost, not just the price tag. What's the maintenance burden?
Which leads perfectly into the key questions the research suggests asking before you buy.
Yes. Before you bring that decorative vase home, ask yourself, am I really going to spend 30 minutes dusting this every single week?
Or, this gorgeous dress needs dry cleaning. Will I realistically wear it more than 3 times?
Exactly. Force yourself to confront the time and effort commitment. It shifts the focus from just, is it pretty, to, does maintaining this actually fit into my life?
That's a really useful filter. Was there an example of someone doing this well?
There was. Mrs. Lin, described as a minimalist living in Taipei's Minxin community, she adopted what they called a 90% decluttering rule.
90%, so she kept only 10% of her stuff.
Essentially, yes. Deliberately got rid of the vast majority of her belongings. Took serious discipline, I imagine.
I bet. What was the result?
The payoff was huge. By drastically reducing the number of things she owned and needed to manage, She freed up an incredible 15 hours every week.
15 hours a week? What does she do with all that time?
She used it for self-improvement, took foreign language classes, invested in herself.
Wow. So decluttering wasn't just about a tidy house. It literally bought her time back to pursue her goals.
Exactly. Shedding unnecessary things doesn't just simplify your space, it can unlock really valuable time for growth.
Okay, powerful stuff. Finally, let's tackle termite number 5, leapfrog consumption. The material called this one vanity's debt hell. Sounds ominous.
It kind of is. This is all about buying an illusion of class.
What does that mean?
It's when people make these really big purchases, often way beyond what they can comfortably afford, trying to project an image, success, wealth, higher status, you know?
Give me an example.
The sources mention things like young people spending half a year's salary on a single designer handbag, or using 24-month installment plans just to get the absolute newest iPhone the second it comes out.
Trying to look like they belong to a certain group or live a certain lifestyle.
Right. They think they're buying into a high-quality life or signaling upward mobility, but the research argues pretty forcefully they're just buying a class illusion, and the actual cost to their finances is devastating.
How bad is it?
Well, the credit card data highlighted was grim. Among under 30s with revolving credit card debt, a shocking 38% have monthly payments that eat up more than half their income.
More than half their income just servicing debt. That's crippling.
Immense financial strain. It severely degrades their actual quality of life, even if they own a few fancy things. It's the ultimate trap, really.
Spending money to look wealthy actually stops you from ever becoming wealthy because you're drowning in debt payments.
Exactly. And the financial loss on these items themselves is huge, too. The sources pointed out that the resale value for many luxury items is often only about 32% of what you paid.
32%. So the moment you buy it, you've basically lost 68% of its value.
Poof. Gone. Trying to sell it later just locks in that massive economic hit.
Okay, so the material made a counterpoint here, right? About true taste.
Yeah, a really important one. True taste, genuine style. It doesn't need flashy logos or enormous price tags.
It's not about the brand name.
Not necessarily. They did this great comparison. A simple canvas bag versus a designer bag. The canvas bag. Cheap, super durable, you use it all the time, zero maintenance. It offers something like 7 times better value or cost performance compared to the expensive designer bag you might use less often and have to baby.
Right. It's about practicality, how much use you get versus the cost and hassle.
Exactly. And they did a similar thing with watches, comparing cheap, functional watches to expensive mechanical ones. While those fancy mechanical watches are amazing pieces of engineering, the research noted that, honestly, inexpensive watches often meet modern needs and how we actually use watches perfectly well. Sometimes even better if they have smart features.
Yes, spending a fortune on something you're almost afraid to wear doesn't make a lot of practical sense.
Not really. So, how do you fight this urge to leapfrog? The sources offered a strategy from a Mr. Zhang, an engineering manager in Taichung.
Okay, what was his rule?
He used a 10% of salary rule. Any single purchase that cost more than 10% of his monthly salary automatically triggered a mandatory 30-day cooling-off period.
Ah, another cooling off period. Like the impulse buy one, but tied to a price threshold.
Exactly. This forced him to really stop and think about the necessity, the long-term financial impact of those bigger ticket items.
Did it work for him?
The material said that by using this method consistently, he managed to save his first significant chunk of money in 3 years.
That's a concrete result. Shows the power of just pausing and thinking before making those large purchases.
It's about breaking that cycle, isn't it? Stop buying an image, start building actual tangible financial security.
So we've really dug into these 5 financial termites, haven't we? Impulse buying, cheap stuff that costs more, social spending for show, time-sucking home goods, and buying illusions of class. They come at us from all angles.
Often quite subtly, yeah. And bringing it all together, I think the core message from all the material we reviewed is this. Real financial freedom. It's not about how much stuff you can buy.
What is it about then?
It's about your, Gary, that's a great word. It means your confidence, your backbone, your solid financial foundation.
Right. It's not about the surface. It's about the substance underneath.
Exactly. It requires a fundamental shift in mindset. Stop using shopping or possessions to try and prove your worth or project some image. Instead, channel that energy into building a real financial defense. Savings, conscious spending, choices that actually increase your security.
There's a line in the material that really stuck with me about that.
Which one?
Something like, Every zero you add to your bank account actually reduces a kilogram of anxiety from your soul.
Ah, yes. That's a powerful image, isn't it? There's this deep sense of peace, of strength, that comes from having that solid base, no matter what things look like on the outside.
It's not just numbers, it's about feeling secure, feeling resilient.
And that really leads us to the final thought, the provocative question we wanted to leave with you, straight from the sources.
Okay, let's hear it.
Start treating your shopping cart, physical or virtual, like a financial health check. Right before you click confirm payment or head to the checkout, pause, take a breath.
And ask.
Ask yourself honestly, does this specific choice bring me closer to financial insecurity, maybe even bankruptcy? Or does it move me further towards actual financial freedom?
Oof, that's a tough question to ask in the moment. But it really does put the power back in your hands, doesn't it? Each decision matters.
Absolutely. Every spending choice is like a little vote for the kind of financial future you want.
And the material finished on quite an empowering note, I thought.
Yeah.
About those choices you don't make, the temptations you resist, the dollars you don't spend on these financial termites.
They become something else.
They become the light of savings. They add up, become the building blocks that can actually guide your future towards genuine financial freedom, towards reaching the life goals that really matter.
It's a call to be intentional, isn't it? To recognize that your everyday spending decisions have this ripple effect, far beyond just that one transaction. They really do shape your financial destiny.